As Jay said, I'm Barb Ferguson, and I have the pleasure today of introducing to you all Bruceann King. And some of you all may have encountered Bruceann. Bruceann works as an adjunct at USI, and she has one of the BSW field seminars, and in the summer MSW. So some of you may have come in contact with her. What you may or may not know about her is she is also the social worker at Cedar Hall. And as a part of being the social worker at Cedar Hall, then she began what many of you may have encountered in your lives, the backpack program where the kiddos have food that they take home on the weekends for those who don't have lunches and breakfasts that are available to them. She knows everybody in that school, and there are 500 and
we have 640 students this year.
640 students, and she can name every one of them by first name. In addition to this, she was an ASW Social Worker of the Year, last year. And so this is just going to be a real treat for you, and I'm going to turn it over to Bruceann.
Thank you, Barb. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you, y'all. It is always a pleasure when I'm asked to speak on such a topic that I am very passionate about. I think most of you all, as social work majors, know that we are very, very blessed to be able to do what we do, and the rewards that come out of being a social worker, I can't even begin to name. I've been fortunate. I actually got my BSW from Murray State in 1987, so it's been a very, very long time. Later went on and got my MSW from USI, very proud to say, in 98, and never ever thought I'd be a school social worker. As a matter of fact, I had no idea what I wanted to do. Even looking back when I was in undergrad, the thought or the idea of being a social worker never crossed my mind, because as you all know, there are so many negative stereotypes associated with being a social worker. We're often told that we want to take kids away, and I think you all have probably heard that in your studies. Certainly that is not our goal. That's not what we want to do. We certainly are very supportive of family preservation, and there are social workers who do work with CPS and DCS. Again, I had no idea what I wanted to do, and when I chose to go to Murray State, I think that was probably the very first eye-opening experience I had in regards to diversity. I did not grow up in Evansville. I grew up in Detroit and spent the first 14 years of my life in an elementary school and middle school where there was one Caucasian student. We had about 600 students in the elementary school I attended, about 900 students in the junior high middle school I attended. And again, I did not realize that that wasn't the norm, to have a variety of races. And we just thought that was the norm. Moving to Evansville was certainly an eye-opener, because it was the total opposite, where I was one of the minorities. Going to Murray State back in the early 80s, I could not imagine that the KKK were still marching 30 minutes away from the university. And I learned of this with my very first roommate, who was from that county, and she shared that this was still a weekly thing in that county. So again, growing up in Detroit, being in a predominantly black middle school and elementary school, and then moving to Evansville, where certainly diversity was a concern, and going down to Murray State, seeing this, I had no idea that this, again, still existed. It's unfortunate today that we still have issues with diversity. I certainly don't think we're where we need to be, but as social workers, we are taught from the very beginning that we have to respect the clients that we're working with, that we have to be non-judgmental. And I'm just curious to know how many in this group are actually from towns where there isn't a lot of diversity. Wow. And that is still very shocking to me. As I talk to my students, and they share that the very first experience they had with someone who doesn't look like them, doesn't think like them, was when they were in college. Is that pretty much the picture here? You know, and that's scary. That's very frightening, because I wish I could say we live in a black and white world, but we don't. Reality is that as social workers, if we don't learn how to be acceptable and to work with diverse populations, your career as a social worker is not going to be as rewarding as it needs to be. When I first started working at Cedar Hall, this is my 15th year there, certainly I did not grow up in poverty, and I work at a school where there's 97% of our students are on free and reduced lunch. We have a very high transient population. A very high percentage of our children are living in single households, single parent households. Parents don't work, and I did not have that prior knowledge or that prior experience to go in and say, yes, I can relate, I can empathize with what these children are going through. We have a very, very high number of incidents where children are neglected, abused, again, homeless. I mean, we have students who are living in local motels because their parents don't have the resources to live in a home or apartment. But what I say with that is, how we are raised certainly dictates how we think as individuals. And so as you're growing up, your parents are the ones, or your relatives, they instill those beliefs in who you are today. When you're raised in a household and all you know is white, middle income, Catholic, that's what you're going to believe. What you all have to do as young adults now is try to educate yourself where you see beyond what you were raised or how you were raised. Again, when you get out and you start practicing, you're not going to pick and choose. You're not going to be able to pick and choose what that client is going to look like. I mean, I wish I could say that were the case, but that's not going to happen. You're going to be faced with a variety of diverse populations, whether it's ethnicity, whether it's low socioeconomic status, whether it's same-sex relationships, whether it's religious beliefs, and you all have got to prepare yourself for this now. I say, if you have not had an opportunity to go outside of that circle, that protective, boundary that you've been raised in, you're going to be in for a very, very, very good awakening. And I say how you do that is if you can get out, if you can do volunteer work, if you know there's a population that you're not comfortable with, to be able to get out and take opportunities or take advantage of those opportunities so you can develop some more diverse thinking. So what we've done is we've actually, do they have the questionnaire in front of them, Barb? Not yet? Okay, what I want you all to do is, on the sheet of paper you have, I want you, as quickly, if you don't have paper, okay, we'll get you some more. We need sheets here.
Anybody else that needs paper?
Thank you.
What I want you to do, and we'll just take a couple of minutes to do this, if you can jot down 10 things about yourself, no certain things, just 10 things. If you had to identify yourself, how would you identify yourself? 10 words. Like I said, we'll take a couple of minutes to do that. I might do that myself, Barb. So you all know, being social work majors, I'm going to ask you to share some of these, so get ready. Thank you, Barb. writing. It'll take another minute to finish up. And if you can't think of 10, that's okay. I think after that good pizza, nobody should identify themselves as being hungry, that's for sure. Thank you all for the food. Anybody want to volunteer to go first while we have others kind of finishing up? Shall I pick on them and stuff? Oh, okay, great. We have a volunteer. Yeah, well, come on up. Come on. Come on, yes, see there? Yeah, but you all know, as I always tell all my students, as social workers, never be shy, I'm afraid to stand up. Thank you. What's your name?
Allie.
Allie, thank you. We have Allie who has volunteered, thank you, Allie, to go first, and she's going to share some characteristics about herself.
Okay. I'm 22 years old, college student. Work at TriCap, ambitious, caring, adventurous, aunt, sister, hard worker, and loves dogs.
I like that. Thank you, Allie. Thank you. So those of you all who know Allie, would you agree that those characteristics fit Allie? Yes? Okay, good. Couple more volunteers. Now nobody will come up since we're making you stand up front. Come on, I know you all are not shy.
I'll go.
Okay, good, we've got
I'm
two
almost
here.
I already said I'll go.
Okay.
I'm just kidding.
You go first.
You want me to come on there?
Yes, yes,
come on.
thank
Yeah,
you.
I get
Okay.
everybody to.
Okay, what's your name?
My name's Emily.
Okay, thank you.
Whew. Faith-based, active, caring, outgoing, happy, proud, growing, creative, protective, and planner.
Thank you. So, would you all agree? Okay. All right, one more.
Come on,
Oh, goodness, now we have.
no, they're all on my team.
Oh, okay, thank you, Barb. These are Barb's seminars. Thank you.
That's right.
Okay, good. What's your name?
Melissa.
Okay, Melissa, thank you.
Shout out to Barb here.
All right.
I only just used one word because I thought that was the direction, which is one word.
Okay,
but
that's okay.
Maybe I was.
Yeah, and that's great.
But okay. Mom, sweet. We all know that one. Funny, caring, smart, savvy, outgoing, determined, loving, and genuine.
I love those. I love those. Thank you very much. And I would say those are true because I'm getting a lot of smiles as you're talking. The reason I asked you all to do this exercise is because I just wanted to see really how much emphasis is actually placed on how we present as a person. And out of all the 3 students who volunteered to come up, no one actually said white, female, and I'm surprised at that because those are certainly qualities that we see as we're looking at you. And it is especially important, and I like how you all were able to define qualities about yourself. And those are oftentimes qualities that we don't see. When we have clients who come in, we are often very, very judgmental of how they present to us. And this is really important when we're looking at stereotypes and we're looking at diversity. We cannot always judge a person how they present. So if you were working with a client who was pretty obvious that maybe they didn't have the best hygiene, or maybe they did not have the best clothes, or maybe they were of a race that you're not comfortable with, of course, looking at that individual certainly is not going to help you understand this person, you know, how genuine this person may be, or how caring this person may be, or this person may be a father or a son. And I think with this exercise, kind of looking beyond how we present, you know, this is a shell. Certainly if I was explaining myself, and kind of let me share a couple of qualities, I said funny, outgoing, respectful, mother, kind. Those are qualities that, again, if you don't know me, you may not know that these are characteristics about myself. But what could you tell me looking at me? Just somebody, raise your hand. Looking at me, if you were describing me, what would you say? It's pretty obvious.
I was going to say you're professional. But you are black.
Thank you. I like that. That's the answer I wanted to hear. That's the answer I wanted to hear, and I appreciate that. And I also appreciate the professional too. But you know, that's important because we present with several physical characteristics that unfortunately we can't change. You know, certainly there are a lot of circumstances that our clients are going to present to us, whether it's addictions, mental health issues. Those are certainly circumstances that to some degree can be, you know, looked at differently and certainly can be dealt with. But when a client comes in, whether it's, how many of you all, and I'm going to raise my hand to this, I'll be the first one. How many of you all sometimes, those of you all who are doing your field placements right now, see a mother come in and she may have 3, 4, 5 kids, and you think, oh, I'm sure she's not married, I'm sure she's just getting a check. I mean, really? I mean, raise your hand. That is how, those are called stereotypes. We don't always know a person's situation. We don't know a person's circumstances. So what I'm wanting you all to take from this exercise today, or this discussion today, is as a social worker, you have got to stop judging people based on how they present to you. That is so unfair. We cannot assume that this person is a bad person because they're African American, or because they're Asian, or because they're Caucasian, or because their religion isn't the same as us. We have to be able to look further than that. And as social workers, that is crucial. That is very, very crucial. Okay? So let's see. Next, I think we're gonna watch a couple of clips. I don't know if any of you all have ever had an opportunity to watch or have ever heard of Jane Elliott, who was a 3rd grade teacher who did an experiment. It's called The Eye of the Storm, and she did it. Excuse, this is a very, very old footage. She actually did an experiment back in 1968. It was the day after Dr. Martin Luther King's assassination, with her 3rd grade class. And the reason I'm wanting to show this is so you all can understand how individuals can be conditioned to think differently. And if you look at these 3rd graders, how prior to the experiment they were very good friends, they were equally treated by the teacher, until one day she did this experiment and separated the students by those students who had brown eyes and those students who had blue eyes. And I want you to see.
Frontline is made possible by the annual financial support of PBS viewers like you. Thank you. When civil rights leader Martin Luther King Jr. was assassinated in 1968, grief and frustration erupted in America's cities. And far away in Iowa, one 3rd grade teacher knew she had to do something.
The shooting of Martin Luther King could not just be talked about and explained away. There was no way to explain this to little 3rd graders in Riceville, Iowa. I knew that it was time to deal with this in a concrete way, not just talk about it, because we had talked about racism since the first day of school.
This is a fact. Blue-eyed people are better than brown-eyed people.
It was a daring experiment in prejudice.
I watched wonderful, thoughtful children turn into nasty, vicious, discriminating little third graders.
Can one teacher in one day change the lives of her students forever? Tonight, a frontline classic, A Class Divided.
August 1984. A high school reunion brings some 50 former students to Riceville, Iowa. 11 of them, some with their spouses and children, arrive early for a special reunion with their former third-grade teacher, Jane Elliott.
This is my husband to you. This is my husband, Tom. Tom, Brian.
I go there.
How are you? Oh, fine. I'm Mr. Roy Wilson.
I made it.
Darling, oh,
Been a
Roy.
long time.
Oh,
Been here
I'm so
14
glad
years.
to see you.
I didn't care what it is. How are you doing?
Fine.
Down and let's see you.
How are your little rooms? They're at home with Mom.
It's coming down.
And this is your husband. Fred Brown. Fred Brown. I'm nice to meet you.
14 years earlier, when they were students in her third-grade classroom, ABC News filmed a 2-day exercise for a documentary, The Eye of the Storm. Now, at their request, they will see that film again and relive the experience of her unique lesson in discrimination.
Okay.
This is a special week. Does anybody know what it is? National Brotherhood Week. What's brotherhood?
Be kind to your brothers. Be kind.
Okay, be kind to your brothers.
Like you would like to be treated.
Treat everyone the way you would like to be treated. Treat everyone as though he was your brother. And is there anyone in this United States that we do not treat as our brothers?
Yes.
Who? The black people. Who else? Absolutely the Indians. And when many people see a black person or a yellow person or a red person, what do they think?
Look at that.
They look at the dumb people. What else do they think sometimes? What kinds of things do they say about black people?
Call them niggers.
In the city, many places in the United States, how are black people treated? How are Indians treated? How are people who are of a different color than we are treated?
They're part of this world. They don't get anything in this world.
Why is that?
Because they're different colors.
You think you know how that would feel to be judged by the color of your skin?
Yeah.
Do you think you do? No, I don't think you'd know how that felt unless you had been through it, would you? It might be interesting to judge people today by the color of their eyes. Would you like to try this?
Yeah.
Sounds like fun, doesn't it? Since I'm the teacher and I have blue eyes, I think maybe the blue-eyed people should be on top the first day. I mean, the blue-eyed people are the better people in this room. Oh, yes, they are. Blue-eyed people are smarter than brown-eyed people.
My dad isn't that stupid.
Is your dad brown-eyed?
Yeah.
One day you came to school and you told us that he kicked you.
He did.
Do you think a blue-eyed father would kick his son?
Yeah. My
dad's blue-eyed. He's never kicked me. Greg's dad is blue-eyed. He's never kicked him. Rex's dad is blue-eyed. He's never kicked him. This is a fact. Blue-eyed people are better than brown-eyed people. Are you brown-eyed or blue-eyed? No.
Why are you shaking your head?
I don't know.
Are you sure that you're right? Why? What makes you so sure that you're right?
I don't know.
The blue-eyed people get 5 extra minutes of recess, while the brown-eyed people have to stay in. The brown-eyed people do not get to use the drinking fountain. You'll have to use the paper cups. You brown-eyed people are not to play with the blue-eyed people on the playground, because you are not as good as blue-eyed people. Well, the brown-eyed people in this room today are going to wear collars, so that we can tell from a distance what color your eyes are. On page 127. 127. Is everyone ready? Everyone but Laurie. Ready, Laurie? She's a brown-eyed. You'll begin to notice today that we spend a great deal of time waiting for brown-eyed people. The yardstick's gone. Well, okay. I don't see the yardstick. Do you?
It's probably over there. Hey, Miss Lady, you better keep that on your desk so if the brown people get out of hand.
Oh! Did you all hear that? You think if the brown-eyed people get out of hand, that would be the thing to use? Who goes first to lunch? The blue-eyed people. No brown-eyed people go back for seconds. Blue-eyed people may go back for seconds. Brown-eyed people do not.
Brown-eyed.
Don't you know?
Oh, they're not smart.
Is that the only reason? It might take too much. Okay, quiet.
It seems like when we were down on the bottom, everything bad was happening to us. The way they treated you, you felt like you didn't even want to try to do anything. It seemed like Mrs. Elliott was taking our best friends away from us.
What happened at recess? Were 2 of you boys fighting?
Yeah, Russell and John.
What happened, John?
Russell called me names and I hit him in the gut.
What did he call you?
Brown eyes.
You call him brown eyes?
They always call us that. Greg and all of the always call us brown eyes. Come here, brown eyes. Then they would call us blue eyes. I wasn't. Sandy and Donna were. Yeah.
What's wrong with being called brown eyes?
It means that we're stupid. No, not that. Oh, that's just the same way as other people call black people niggers. Yeah.
Is that the reason you hit him, John? Did it help? Did it stop him? Did it make you feel better inside?
After so.
Make you feel better inside? Did it make you feel better to call him brown eyes? Why do you suppose you call him brown eyes?
Right, because he has brown eyes.
Is that the only reason? He didn't call him brown eyes yesterday, and he had brown eyes yesterday. Didn't he?
We just saw that. Ever since we put those blueprints on the tease them. Tease them.
Oh, is this teasing?
No. Well, he did.
Were you doing it for fun, to be funny, or were you doing it to be mean? I don't know. Don't ask me. Did anyone laugh at you when you did it?
I watched what had been marvelous, cooperative, wonderful, thoughtful children turn into nasty, vicious, discriminating little 3rd graders in a space of 15 minutes.
Yesterday, I told you that
Riceville hasn't changed much in the 17 years since
Let's
then.
stop it real quick,
It's
Laura.
still a
Can we turn
small
the lights
farm.
on? How many of you all, you can kind of guess the rest, but this was an amazing experiment because these children prior to this experiment probably had no idea that their peers had different color eyes and that they were going to be treated differently because one group had brown eyes, one group had blue eyes. But tell me what changed that perception. Why did the students start to treat one another badly?
Because the teacher told them that one is better than the other.
Exactly, exactly. That is where we get our morals, our values, our beliefs. We adopt those from our parents because that's how we're raised. And when our parents tell us that this isn't right or this isn't wrong or we shouldn't do that, we automatically adopt those same thoughts. What happened, and you all can probably guess the very next day, which group do you think was the dominant group? The brown-eyed students. So do you think their behaviors were the same as when the blue-eyed group were dominant? Yeah. And that's pretty sad because what I'm looking at, most of you all are 19, 22, 25, 30, older. I was talking about Barb over there. Now, a little more mature, but it's really hard to change our belief system. It's very, very hard if that is how we've been raised. And these thoughts have been ingrained in our heads. And unfortunately, how we're raised and what we're told, we often then put those same thoughts and beliefs on our children. How many of you all have children in here? How many of you all find yourself teaching your children the very same things that your parents taught you?
Thanks, Barb.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Barb. You said no. What's different? And I don't mean to put you on the spot, but what's different? How were you, if you don't mind sharing, how were you raised in terms of diversity and racism? And
I was raised with little diversity and subtle racism, and I have come to realize that that's not a good way to be, and so I don't teach my child that.
thank you. So where was that, when did you decide you've got to make a change in your children, you don't want them to have the same beliefs you did? What pivotal point in your life?
Well, it probably started with teenage rebellion from my parents anyway.
Okay.
But then, I met some more interesting, diverse people at a teenage and above.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else want to share? And it's okay if you say, I was raised in a very, very racist household and I knew I could not date outside of my race. I knew I couldn't have friends outside my race, and that still exists. It's okay. Is anybody? Nobody's gonna?
Yeah, I was raised in what I consider a culturally diverse home. You know, my father came from a wealthy family, and my mother came from a very poor family. My mother's Chinese, my father's very German-Irish. So, you know, I kind of got the best of both worlds. However, in high school I dated a guy that was African-American. And, you know, my parents sat me down and they said, it's not that we don't want you, it's not that we think he's different than you. It's that we know society views this relationship, and the children that you will have if you decide to continue this relationship will be viewed differently, and life will be more difficult. And so I understood that it wasn't necessarily their racism that was preventing that situation, but society's. And because we continue to allow that to happen, then it continues to breed.
We do. And thank you for sharing that. I'm looking at this that was made 45 years ago. Is that right? 1968? Yeah. 45 years ago. Does this still happen?
I just want to say, Jane Elliott did this same experiment many years later, like in the 80s, with adults on the Oprah show. And towards the experiment, they were getting angry the exact same way the children reacted. And then she explained in this experiment, and even though they were adults and could understand the concept, they still were at each other constantly.
Yes, and if you all get a chance, there are definitely more clips. As a matter of fact, there's a reunion when these kids, as you can see, that's how it started. 14 years later or so, they get together and they talk about the effects that this experiment has. She even takes it a step further and actually goes in and talks to some individuals at a correctional facility. And certainly the impact is the same. I guess where we're at 45 years later is, it is still a problem. You know, it is still a major concern. And I think we, being in the helping profession, being social workers, we are certainly the front line folks who can make changes to this, because again, we're going to have clients from all different walks of life. We're not going to be able to pick and choose that we want this middle income, affluent, Caucasian or African American client. It's not that simple. You know, we have clients coming, you know, with a variety of baggage that they're dealing with. Excuse me, question.
Well, actually, it was a comment on earlier when you were asking individuals to describe themselves and you were surprised that no one said they were white or female. That does not surprise me at all. And it's because I think it's a sign of our white privilege that we don't even recognize our own race.
Okay.
And I just got back from spending a week in Jamaica with a group of students. And it isn't until you go there and you're up in the mountains of Evansville and you're the only white people and people are pointing at you and saying,
you're the
"Oh, there's a
minority.
whitey. Look at the whitey driving. Look at whitey doing this." And we're called whitey all the time. It's the first time that we recognize our own race.
Wow.
So I do think that in spite of how open we say we are about other races, we still assume that the white race is the norm.
And I agree. And can we take that a step further? Is it because, I mean, are you proud of who you are? I mean, I am proud of who I am. I have to say, hold on, that I am very proud of who I am. And I think until we understand and recognize our own biases, you know, our own prejudices, and I think being in this field, we're often told that you have to be judgmental, and certainly you have to be judgmental when you're working with clients, but we don't have to totally excuse and walk away from our own personal biases. We just have to recognize those and make sure that our thoughts, our beliefs do not inhibit a relationship that we have with the client. So, question?
Mine was kind of off of hers. I actually wrote down Italian, Spanish, and Welsh on mine.
Okay.
Because my mom always told me, like, when I fill out applications, I can put whatever I want.
Okay.
Because I can technically put white, or I can put Latino, I can put Spanish, I can put other.
Uh-huh.
She said she wasn't going to make me choose.
Okay.
I wish there was like I told my class this earlier, I wish there was just like a nut box.
Okay.
Because I always tell people, they're like, well, I had someone walk up to me my first year here. He was African American. He walked straight up to me. We were at like some function, and he said, he like went to shake my hand. He goes, "Hi, is your dad black?" And I go, because I get really dark in the summer, and some people ask me if one of my parents was black and one of my parents was white.
Uh-huh.
And I was like, well, first of all, I'm Emily, and no, neither of my parents, or white couldn't have been my mom, or whatever, but I don't know, I just want to make a comment that I did write that down in that.
And I appreciate that, and that's good. And again, we often stay away from that, and I don't know if it's because of the insecurities that we have depending on where we are, you know, where we are culturally. But I think that's important because we are who we are, and how we present to individuals certainly is going to be a big part of how we're accepted. Thank you very much for sharing that comment, Wendy. I appreciate that. What I want you all to take away from this today is it's okay, again, to have those beliefs. It's okay to have, you know, those ideas, because if you've been raised in a predominantly white city or predominantly black city, you know, I think how far I've come and how far I've grown. I still have my personal biases after practicing for 30 years or so, but I do not allow those personal biases to interfere when I'm working with clients. You know, So what can we do? Again, 45 years later, what can we do? I want to kind of hear from you all. What can we do as social workers to better prepare? Most of you all are going to be graduating either with your BSW or MSW, and you're going to be practicing. What can you all take from this, or what can you offer to your peers to help better understand diversity and be able to practice effectively? Yes.
I think ignorance isn't an excuse to be biased and stuff. Like, I think it's our responsibility, not only as human beings, but as social workers, to educate ourselves about other ethnicities and other cultures and stuff, and so that we don't, use that excuse of, I was just ignorant to that, because that's not okay and that's not an excuse.
Thank you, thank you. And how do we do that?
Exposure.
Exposure? Yes, Marie.
As somebody who has worked with field students for a little while, my encouragement would be to seek out a placement that you're working with individuals who are very, very different from both culturally, racially, economically. Because if you select a placement where you're around individuals very, very similar to yourself, what are you
learning? Thank you, Marie, thank you.
You have to be willing to stand up and actually not necessarily confront people. Well, the very first thing you mentioned when you said a lot of people think of social work as taking people's kids away. I had someone come up to me the other day and ask what I did. I said I'm studying social work. They go, oh, that is so incredible. I could never take someone's kids away. And so they were saying it in a positive way, but I took the opportunity to explain what social work is.
Thank you, so
And we
education.
can do that in the same way when someone says, oh, look at that family over there, they're poor, they're black, anything.
Yes.
You just have to stand up and say something.
You're right. Thank you. And it's advocating, and that's a big part of what we do. I mean, that is a major part of who we are, to be able to advocate, not just for ourselves, but certainly to be able to advocate for our clients. That's important. Thank you.
I think it's interesting going off what she said, like when I explain what I'm going to college for and like I'm in the social work program, whatever, to people around my age, they automatically think counselor, like school counselor, like getting your classes and whatever. And I would much rather have that stigma and think that I'm going into a school to help high schoolers pick out colleges and
I wish it was
stuff
that
like
easy
that.
as a school
But
social worker.
right, but people who are older, that's where I get the more of the, oh, you're taking babies and you're passing out checks, like, and like, like my friends, like, outside of the social work program, like, we joke about that all the time when people come up to me and ask me what I do. My friends are always like, oh, she's just passing out checks and snatching up babies, like, just joking around.
Because they
and
don't
like,
know.
well, yeah, well, they get that they're joking around, and then that's when I explain, like, that's not what I want to do. Like, I want to, go out and be with kids and, like, help them. It's not that I want to take them away from their families. And we don't just take people away from their families just to take them away. Like,
Right,
so.
and that's good. And again, educating, because the opportunities are countless as social workers. I mean, there are so many populations that you can work with. There are so many agencies that you can work with. And I think to continue just educating individuals who don't know any better, certainly to help them understand that as a social worker, and this has been, difficult for me as a school social worker especially. You can only imagine when I make a phone call to a parent and I say, hi, this is Bruceann King, I'm the social worker at Cedar Hall. Can you imagine what a parent automatically thinks? Oh my goodness, there's been accusations made against my child. And so it was very hard initially when I started to break through that negative barrier so parents could understand that, my role as a school social worker is certainly to work with you, to work with the school, to provide whatever services are going to be in the best interest of your child. But it is very hard. We still have to break down that barrier, and I think it's just our profession. And as we continue to do it, as we continue to prove that, no, that is not our purpose, that is not our goal, it's still going to take, many years to do that. Jay, question?
Actually, I just have a statement. I feel like when it comes to diversity, it's not just important to recognize biases within ourselves. I think it's important that when we're interviewing patients and clients that we recognize their biases and we empathize with them and understand or attempt to understand where that comes from in order to understand enough so we can educate them in a more appropriate way.
Definitely.
I mean, if someone who makes a discriminative comment towards me for being gay, I don't want to snap off and get angry with them. I need to understand where
Yes.
they're coming from,
Exactly.
and then react properly, so not to shut them down.
Thank you.
Because if you snap off, and then instead of empathizing with them and understanding,
And educating,
you're gonna
yes.
shut them down before you even get a chance to explain
Exactly.
your point of view, your
Exactly.
feelings towards it, how that makes you feel, and then you're gonna shut down the dialogue.
Exactly. Good
And that's
point.
not doing
Definitely.
any good to shut down the dialogue.
No,
You're
it
not
isn't.
helping the situation. Matter of fact, I believe you're making it worse.
I agree. Definitely. Definitely. Good point. Good point.
Somebody else had a hand.
Question? Sorry, you all.
Oh, I just had an added comment to what we can do is like live an exemplary life, right? Just treat all people with respect, especially the vulnerable populations that we're dealing with who might have very deep convictions about prejudices and such.
Yes, definitely. One more comment?
My mom always told me, I have a brother who's disabled and he uses a wheelchair and is mentally retarded and has cerebral palsy. And my mom always had to correct me instead of like a disabled person or a special needs person. My mom always said it is a person who uses a wheelchair,
Yes.
not a person in a wheelchair.
Yes, yes.
Or
wheelchair bound, or yes,
a disabled
definitely.
person, a person who has disabilities.
Yes, yes. And that's important because we don't want to label a person based on whatever their disability may be. You're exactly right. We've got about 10 more minutes. There's another clip I'm going to show, but once we see this clip, I want you all to kind of be thinking about your very first racial experience. If you can kind of look back, remember I shared mine going to Murray State, and I think that was that light bulb that went off where I really was more aware that there was definitely, racial inequality that still existed. But this is a really short clips. As a matter of fact, have you all ever seen the show What Would You Do? Okay,
Go to
this is one.
YouTube.
Yes,
Wait a
this is
minute,
one.
Jay, she's gotta go to YouTube.
Oh, sorry guys. Laura, my intern for Murray State, is my tech person. Thank goodness.
Are you good with the, Laura, are you good with what?
She is good. She's on.
Muslim female in a bakery. There you go. And then it's the guy pointing right there. You had him.
Okay, lights again, Jay. Thank you.
New lunch combinations. Choose from new calzones and
Again, we shouldn't be hungry, which is good.
oven baked. Serve with unlimited super salads.
We've got
So
to
many
get
lunch
those
combinations
tossed out,
starting
don't
at
we, Barney?
$6.95 when you
Okay,
go
thank
Olive
you.
Garden.
Hello, and welcome to the opening show of our primetime series, What Would You Do? If you see something and you think it's wrong, do you step in or do you step away? What people say and what they do aren't always the same. That's why our hidden cameras are so revealing. In our first scenario, we weren't sure what to expect when our opinionated man behind the counter meets the Muslim woman in a headscarf.
Deep in the heart of Texas, at this little roadside bakery, bigotry is being served with a coffee and bagels.
I have a question.
No, ma'am. We don't serve Muslims here.
I'm sorry.
This is America. We're at war with your people.
I don't know what you think I am. I'm just trying to get an apple.
Well, you're a terrorist, is what you are.
Wow.
So,
Excuse me?
you gotta take your business elsewhere. We don't serve your kind.
The other customers at this bakery near Waco seem to hear everything, but they barely look at the Muslim woman, even when the language is tough to take.
Get back on the camel and go back wherever you came from.
Sir, I'm an American. I was born and raised
No,
in
you're
this
not.
country.
Americans don't wear towels on their head.
Wow.
Muslim Americans say these are words they hear all the time in all parts of the country. But here at the bakery, what the customers don't know is that this Muslim woman and the man behind the counter are actors. The bakery is working with us, all part of a primetime hidden camera experiment on prejudice and patriotism.
Please
please take your business elsewhere. Am I asking too much?
When no one even tries to help her, she makes a direct appeal.
Sir, would you mind ordering me an apple strudel? That's why I'm here. I can give you the money. I know how.
That's not a problem.
Wow.
Please no, sir. I'm not gonna let you have it.
But when he gives her the cold shoulder, she finally just leaves.
You could have helped her out. You could have spoken up. Why not?
Me speak up for her? Well, if he tried to do some harm to her or something, then I would have.
But why not try to set him straight?
I really think that a person that owns his own business should be able to say who they sell to.
Wow.
She's not American.
Others seem to agree with our actor as to who's an American and who's not. Is it all based on the way we look?
I'm an American citizen. I just would like an apple strudel, please.
Well, I'm sorry. Then why don't you dress like an American? You're so
This is for
American.
religious purposes, sir. I don't think you have any right to say anything.
So I'm religious. I don't wear, Halloween costumes around. I mean, am I wrong here, sir?
Not me.
I run my business the way I can.
Right. Right. Don't come in here without shoes and skirts.
Can you believe
This customer
that?
is adamant that the man behind the counter is doing the right thing.
Wow.
But the fact is, it's against the law to deny service to someone based on their race or religion.
My name is John Quinones, and I'm with ABC News. What did you think of what you heard here?
I didn't hear anything racist.
You told her you wouldn't
Wow.
serve her.
Well, he can say he wouldn't serve you if you come in here barefooted without a shirt on.
But she wasn't barefoot or without a shirt on.
Well, she wasn't dressed right.
What do you mean?
Wow.
If I'd run the place, I'd do the same thing.
You wouldn't let Muslims shop at your store?
I sure wouldn't.
We never expected
Wow.
customers to be so candid.
How do I know you don't have a bomb in there?
Watch what happens this time when, once again, our Muslim woman is denied service
This is not right.
and again leaves.
We reserve the right to not serve.
That's right. That's right.
So you have customers who are agreeing with them.
He not only commends the man behind the counter for his discriminatory behavior, but he gives him the thumbs up, not once, but twice,
Good job. All right.
as he leaves.
Could I talk to you, sir, for a second?
But when I approach,
So we're with ABC News.
there is no thumbs up for me.
We staged a little experiment in there to see how people would react to that kind of attitude.
You're not an American.
I am American.
Wow. Wow.
That man took it a bit farther, telling me I'm not an American.
He was threatened.
Jack DeVideo is a social psychologist at Yale University.
So when we as Americans feel threatened from the outside, we're going to define ourselves in very rigid fashions. Either you're with me, and if you're not really one of me, then you must be somebody else who's against me.
Ignorance.
The young woman in our experiment is an actor. But for this woman, discrimination is all too real. Nahaya Javed helped us design our experiment. Although born in Chicago, she says she's constantly characterized by fellow Americans as the enemy.
They always start off with, you're a terrorist, Osama lover, towel head, camel jockey, on and on.
While attending college in Texas, she says she continually suffered verbal abuse and has even been physically attacked just because she's Muslim.
They assume I'm not from here, and if I tell them I'm American, they're like, no, you're not. Just because you were born here doesn't make you American. And I'm like, so what makes you American?
It's a daily battle.
Oh, stop it. Thank you. I think.
And I don't feel.
That's still happening. We know that that's no secret. So this isn't 45 years ago. I think this was within the past year. So again, it is still happening. Again, I think you all made some very valid points. Truly, it's a matter of ignorance. It's a matter of not being educated. We still have a long way to go to educate individuals that just because you look different, you talk differently, you think differently, that it's not okay. It's not okay to treat individuals differently. What we've passed out is it's a questionnaire. Thank you, Barb. And what I want you all to do is just kind of go through and answer those questions, and you don't have to put your names on the papers. So we want you to be honest. Number one, when you consider whatever type of person you may consider making a strong statement about his or her identity and self-esteem is linked to a whatever type of worldview, what do you feel, what do you think, and what would you do as a social worker? And I know we don't have a lot of time, so try to answer them to the best of your ability. 2, when I imagine seeing professionally a biracial couple considering marriage and children, again, you think.
You don't have one?
No, I don't understand question 1. We feel bad as MSW students that we don't understand. I don't understand what you're looking for.
Yeah, insert in there what that is for you. When I
Can you give us an
consider what
example?
kind of person.
Black,
A
white,
black person, a
Hispanic,
Muslim person, you know, where is your,
gay.
I'm not gonna, gay, you know, where does your difficulty with diversity lie? I'm not gonna define that for you.
And kind of those same answers like number 3, when I imagine blank again, whatever client you want to use, telling me of the prejudice and discrimination he or she has endured, you feel. And I mean, even that can go back to the video clip we just watched. How'd you feel about that? 2 obstacles that I experience in working effectively with whatever population are. And then lastly, what I will make a commitment to do to decrease my racism, increase my effectiveness as a social worker with people of other races is.
It's sort of based on the fact that whatever it was that all of the comments that you all said in whatever direction they went as we were discussing this, the very first thing that has to happen is a recognition with self that that bias is there. You know, and maybe it's a bias against those folks who are biased, and then how do you treat them? You know, how judgmental do you become then? Somebody spoke to that of the responsibility when you have a client that expresses, you know, so maybe that's where it is for you. That's why it's not defined in here.
One finished over there. And again, you do not have to put your names. We really honestly want to know where you're at, where your thinking's at.
Yeah, if you just leave those as you walk out, but you don't have to put your names on them, but leave the questions, answers, please.
Is there something that we can turn these in at a different time?
Yeah, if you'd like to take them with you,
Yeah.
you can turn them into either our
Or a social work
Or the
office.
social work
Just
department,
talk
yes.
about social work office, we'll put a folder
I'd
in
like to
there.
fill it out, but.
And we want, yeah, and we don't want to rush you. We really want you to think about this and really process this,
Yeah.
so your answers are going to be a true indication of how you feel.
Yeah, your responses just help us in knowing where you are, not who you are. You know, who you are.
Yes.
There's a class in here.
Oh, there's a class waiting. Thank you, everyone.
Class is waiting.